Riverside Great Northern Conservation Society, a non-profit educational historical association of some 275 members. Locomotive 82 was built by the Stanley Light Railway Equipment Works of Wisconsin Dells in 1957. A group of buildings that were left at the other end of the line. Weighs a little over 6,000 pounds, operates at 150 pounds per square inch steam pressure, and works much the same way as steam locomotives have worked for nearly 200 years. It burns coal to boil water to make steam. The coal goes in, as you might guess the coal would go in. Water goes in by mixing cold water from the tender with steam from the boiler in a device called an injector, which uses the power of steam to force the cold water into the heated pressurized boiler. The water boils and forms steam. It collects in the steam dome. Inside that dome is a little metal box. The lid is hooked to the throttle, and the box is connected to the valve chest at the front of the locomotive. Open the throttle, opens the lid on the box, allows steam to flow into the valve chest. The valves then distribute it to the cylinders ahead of the pistons to push them backward, behind the pistons to push them forward. The forward and back movement transfers to the driving wheels by the rods along the side. The used steams up the stack. I think I can, but it also drafts the fire and makes it burn much hotter. So unless you have questions about the 82, Strike three. I'm out. I'm going back here to fill you in on the last 150 years.
Hope you guys had a big breakfast.
You don't ask him any more questions you ask me. You'll be back by dark. Amtrak's Empire Builder is due through any time now, so we may see it through the trees. It's been pretty close because it's only running Chicago to the Twin Cities.
Downtown, Western Springs, Wisconsin. Population of 5. Now we were transported about 1.5 miles from Hyde Park to reach this beautiful destination here, and we here at the Riverside Great Northern Railway hope that your stay here in Western Springs will be a pleasant one. Now for those of you who'd like to return to Hyde Park, which is where your cars are at, I'll be selling those all-important return tickets. No taker? Alright, I'll give you a little history on our railroad. Elmer Stanley, he was the founder of the Stanley Light Railway Equipment Works Company. And how he got started with this is he was a steam engineer for the Chicago and Northwestern Railway. In 1945, he went to Western Europe. And in Western Europe at that time, they had these small gauge railways in place in their larger communities and towns to help move people around town, much like we use our modern day subway systems in our large cities. Well, these little railroads also connected these communities together, and this impressed Elmer quite a bit, so he purchased the plans and the ideas and brought them back here to the States. Well, obviously having miniature railroads throughout all the United States didn't pan out too well for him, but a couple of years later his son Norman, who was also a steam engineer for the Chicago and Northwestern, did realize that there was quite a bit of interest in these small gauge railways from amusement parks, zoos, and that occasional eccentric millionaire wanting his own private railway. So he left the railroad and went into business with his father. Together they leased land and they built demonstration track down in Janesville, Wisconsin at Riverside Park. That's how the train got its name, Riverside Great Northern. Business was doing pretty well for the Stanleys back then, but times were also good for the city of Janesville, who experienced a population boom and people started building their houses around Riverside Park. It wasn't long before the new neighbors started complaining about the noise and the smells of the little railroad, and the ladies, well, they were complaining about hanging their nice white linen outside to dry, come back, find it speckled with soot. So the city decided not to renew the lease, forcing the Stanleys to relocate. That's when they came across this stretch of abandoned railroad right-of-way you were just on. This railroad right-of-way was built in the mid-1850s by the Milwaukee and La Crosse Railway. It served actual full-size steam trains and actually carried Civil War soldiers on their way to battle at one time. In 1902, the railroad realized that if they moved their line a few hundred feet to the south, to where the existing railroad is today, they wouldn't have near as many curves and they wouldn't have near as steep a grade. So the Stanleys purchased this property and moved their demonstration track and work buildings here to the Dells in 1952. Business was doing very well for the Stanleys. They manufactured several precision steam locomotives, several diesel locomotives, and almost countless rolling stock. They made everything you needed for a small railway. In 1982, Elmer passed away and his son Norman took over the business, but economic times in the early 80s weren't the best. Demands for the railroad had dropped sharply, forcing him into bankruptcy. Now the property remained abandoned for several years until a group of individuals who grew up here in the Dells area, remembering the Stanleys and the free train rides they used to get on the weekends as children, well, they banded together and was able to convince the bank to let them take over the debt and turn this into a living museum. Back then, the entire railroad line had overgrown with trees and brush, all of which needed to be cut and removed by hand, and then more than 5,000 railroad ties had to be replaced, once again by hand. That project took 2 years for them to complete, and was done completely by volunteers. Now today, Preservation Society still depends on its volunteers to keep this museum alive. Everyone you see here today, including myself here, here comes the builder. Everyone here is a volunteer. We give up our weekends, our vacations. We actually have 2 couples from Florida. We have another couple from North Carolina that just arrived yesterday. They spend most of the summer with us, camping out and helping us run our little railway. Now, if you're interested in becoming a member, it's not very expensive at all. It only starts out at $25 for a single adult, $50 for the family plan. Gives you unlimited train rides for a year. Excuse me. Gives you 10% off on our discount, our newsletters, and allows you to come out and volunteer your time if you'd like. Sure could use some help replacing railroad ties. No takers? Well, if you're interested, talk to any one of us. We'll be glad to tell you about it. By the way, the tickets you purchase today, if you do decide to become a member, does go towards your membership. Now, does everyone remember that nice little railroad bridge we crossed? That bridge never used to be there. That used to be landfill that was put in by the Milwaukee and La Crosse Railway back in the 1800s. In June of 2004, it rained here in the Dells, and according to the National Weather Service, it rained 58 days out of 60. One night, the Dells area received an amazing 10 inches of rain in less than 2 hours' time, causing massive flash flooding throughout all of central Wisconsin. Now, every morning, before we allow passengers on the line, we do a track inspection. And the person who did track inspection that day got to that point, seen that the line had washed out and the tracks were hanging over the cliff. He came back and was just in tears. A lot of us cried that day because we thought our little railroad was doomed. But the area was declared a federal disaster zone. FEMA moved in, and with funds from FEMA, a lot of private donations, and a big juicy loan from the bank, which we're still trying to pay off, we were able to build the bridge that's there today. That bridge cost just about $500,000 to build. Now, the tickets you purchase today, that helps ensure that we're able to continue to run throughout the year. It helps pay for the mortgage, the coal, the diesel fuel that we need, the light bill, pays for the insurance, which is outrageous. It's through private donations that we're able to do our restoration work.
Right, and he's going to spin that around and hook it up on the other side of it.
Not done yet.
All right, everybody.